All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to sit in on a super realistic technical interview for a generative AI engineer. You're going to see what it really takes to get hired in one of the hottest fields in tech right now. Let's get into it. Okay, so first up, let's meet our players. On one side, we have Priya. She's a senior engineering manager, super sharp, and she knows exactly what she's looking for. And on the other side, we've got Arjun, a candidate who seems pretty confident he's got the skills. The stage is set for a really practical, no-fluff kind of discussion. And boom, right out of the gate, Priya just cuts to the chase. No, tell me about yourself, none of the usual fluff. She's basically saying, show me you can build. She dives straight into the deep end, focusing on the real challenge, building a RAG-based knowledge assistant. And she hits him with an absolute killer of a first question. Seriously, this is not something you'd find in a textbook. She's asking about failure modes in production. This is a test for battle scars, right? She wants to know if he's actually seen these systems break in the wild and if he understands why. And Arjun he nails it. He immediately points out that the real problem isn't usually the fancy, expensive AI model. Nope, it's the quality of the information you feed it. And that is such a critical insight. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out. But with AI, the garbage out sounds super confident, which is way more dangerous. Okay, so Arjun identified the problem. But that's just step one, right? Priya's not going to let him off that easy. She immediately pushes for the solution. It's not enough to know what's broken. A senior engineer has to know how to fix it. So how do you actually stop these hallucinations when your retrieval is bad? And this is where Arjun really shines. He lays out this awesome 3-layer defense strategy. See, it's not just one simple fix, it's a whole system. He says, first, you fix the retrieval itself, better chunking, hybrid search. Then, you add a quality control step, a re-ranker. And finally, you put a safety net at the end, a faithfulness check. This isn't just a good answer. It shows he thinks systematically, like a real engineer. So let's zoom in on that hybrid search thing for a second. What is it? Well, you've got two main ways to search. Vector search is amazing at understanding concepts and meaning, like the vibe of your query. But it can sometimes miss exact keywords, like a specific product ID. BM25 is the opposite. It's great at finding those exact keywords. So you combine them and you get the best of both worlds. It almost always works better. But Priya, being a good manager, immediately spots a potential problem: speed. She's like, okay, great strategy. But won't adding all these checks make the system super slow for the user? And Arjun's response is perfect because he's already thought about this. He suggests using a smaller, faster model for that final check, and, importantly, running it asynchronously in the background. This shows he's not just thinking about accuracy in a vacuum, he's thinking about real-world performance and user experience. All right, let's move on to the next big hurdle, and this one is huge. How do you actually prove that your system works? And more than that, how do you prove it's getting better? We looked at a few examples and it seems okay, just doesn't cut it. A real engineer needs a data-driven way to measure quality. And again, Arjun is ready. He rattles off the 4 core metrics for any RAG system. This is so important because it shows he has a structured way to think about evaluation. He's not just guessing. He's defining what good actually means with clear, measurable things like, did we find the right stuff? Did we find all the right stuff? Did the AI stick to the facts? And finally, did it actually answer the user's question? This is what takes you from just tinkering to proper engineering. And then, he takes it one step further. He doesn't just list the concepts. He names a specific open source tool, Ragus. You know, mentioning a tool like this is a massive signal. It says, I haven't just read about this, I've actually done it. It shows he knows how to automate and scale this whole evaluation process, which is, absolutely essential for any system in production. But here's the kicker, and it's a super important point. None of this, the metrics, the fancy tools, none of it matters if you don't have a solid benchmark to test against. He calls it a golden data set. Think of it like a North Star. It's your fixed source of truth. Without it, you're just flying blind. You might make a change that looks good on one metric, but totally tanks another, and you'd never even know. Okay, so now Priya pivots to a problem that gives engineers nightmares: tables. Yeah, getting an AI to understand data that's trapped inside tables and PDFs. This is where so many simple RAG projects just completely fall on their face. And Arjun's answer here is just fantastic. Why? because he doesn't give some generic, one-size-fits-all answer. He immediately breaks the problem down. He says, look, if you have structured tables like financial data, you use one set of tools to extract it cleanly. But if you have messy tables, like from a scanned PDF, that's a different beast. For those, you use a modern vision model to literally look at the table and describe what it sees. It's all about tailoring the solution to the data, which is a huge sign of a senior engineer. So, they've covered complex data. Now, Priya ups the ante again. She moves from complexity to just pure brute force scale. What happens when you go from a few hundred documents to 50,000 plus? The cute little prototype that worked on your laptop is going to just melt. She's testing his understanding of production architecture now. And without missing a beat, Arjun names the 3 things that always break at scale. First, speed. Searching through that much stuff gets slow. Second, updates. How do you efficiently add new documents or change old ones? And third, freshness. How do you make sure users aren't getting answers from stale, outdated info? It's a perfect, concise answer that covers the whole data lifecycle. And check this out. He does it again. He gets super specific. He doesn't just give a vague answer like, oh, you use a vector database. He names the actual algorithm inside the database, HSNW, that makes the fast search possible. This is one of those small details that screams, I know what I'm talking about. It's a sign of real technical depth. Okay, we're at the final boss battle of the interview. And honestly, this is the most important question of all. Priya asks for a war story, a time when things went wrong in production. This is the question that separates the people who've read the blog posts from the people who've actually been in the trenches. So Arjun tells this story about a really tricky situation. Users were complaining that the answer quality had dropped, but when they looked at their main dashboard, the faithfulness score was perfectly fine. The model wasn't hallucinating. So what was going on? So they dig in, and they realize the problem wasn't with the model at all. The LLM was doing its job perfectly. The issue was that it was being perfectly faithful to complete garbage. The context it was being given was just wrong. And here it is, the root cause. It was a silent failure way back in the data ingestion pipeline. A tiny bug was corrupting new documents as they were being processed. And because their monitoring was only focused on the final AI model, this bug was completely invisible. It was hiding in plain sight. And this story just perfectly drives home the #1 lesson for any production AI system. You have to monitor the entire pipeline, not just the shiny model at the end. The most painful, frustrating problems are almost always hiding somewhere in the boring, unglamorous data plumbing. Always. So let's look at the very end of the interview. There's no big technical question here, but this final exchange, it reveals everything about an engineer's mindset. It's what separates the good from the great. Priya's final comment just sums it all up. She says the model is usually the last thing that's broken. It's the data, the pipeline, the retrieval. She's confirming that Arjun's entire focus throughout the interview was spot on. He focused on the foundations, not just the flashy AI part. And that's exactly what experienced managers want to see. And then Arjun, he flips the script with the perfect final question. He doesn't ask about vacation days or the lunch menu. He asks Priya, what does your evaluation pipeline look like? It shows that what matters most to him is quality and the process for achieving it. He's interviewing them as much as they're interviewing him. And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with.